What's the difference between contingency planning and scenario planning? If you've wondered about the different types of planning tools for your organization, this video is for you. First, you're going to discover why it's important to have alternative plans in the first place. Next, you're going to understand what contingency planning is and when you need to use it. And lastly, you're going to walk away with a deeper understanding of scenario planning and how it can help you when you least expect it. Let's get started. So the first question we want to answer is, why should we plan at all? Now, I'm a big planner when it comes to home or business. I always have been. As a little girl, I was always laying things out, weeks ahead of time and planning ahead. But the main purpose is plans give us a goal that we're going towards. Imagine that you want to go to a park this weekend. And if you haven't identified a specific park you want to go to, you're just going to get in a car and drive around aimlessly. You need a destination. A plan helps give you a destination. So even if you don't know the exact park you're going to, but maybe you know that there's a nature reserve, that's still a plan. You know the general area to go to. So for instance, one of my favorite places to visit in Puerto Rico is the El Yunque Rainforest. It's massive and there's all kinds of different ways to enter it. Part of it is kind of like a public park. The other part, people live in it. Now, if you know the particular park you want to go to in the entrance, you can then go ahead and create directions that are taking you directly there. However, if you don't know exactly where you're going, but you know at least you want to kind of get to the El Yunque Rainforest, you at least know which direction you need to drive in. The same thing applies to our business. We have to have plans so that we have a general direction. Otherwise, we don't have goals for our business and it's really not going to survive. So let's start off talking about contingency planning. Contingency planning helps businesses get ready for threats that they've already identified. So you think about a contingency plan in case of a fire or in case of some type of supply chain interruption that's likely to happen. You already have plans in place for the things that are expected. Now, it doesn't mean that they'll absolutely happen, but it means there's a high probability that they can occur, so you have them ready. So for instance, I'm a professional keynote speaker. Those event planners who put on large-scale events already have contingency plans in place for a host of all kinds of natural disasters, man-made dangerous situations, or anything that can go wrong at their event. Many times they actually have binders of these things, and their team are familiar with those plans. That way, if any of the things that happen in their booklet actually happen, they already have a plan in place. So when I think about contingency plans in households, I think about when I was a child. In school, they used to prepare us for two possible disasters. Number one, there was always the person in the white van that was going to kidnap us. Now, for most of us, that never happened. Even as an adult now, I have a fear of white vans. Good job, teachers. Apparently, you really got that point through that I need to be afraid of the stranger dangers offering me candy in a white van. But the point is that they prepared us for that as a contingency plan. What do? You run away, you scream, you find another adult, you get away. And the other one was somehow they were afraid that we were going to just combust and catch on fire. So we were all taught to stop, drop, and roll. Those are contingency plans. Those are things that we have plans for that are foreseeable. Doesn't mean they're going to happen. Certainly doesn't mean we want them to happen. But they're things that you imagine could happen, and so you create plans for them. That's contingency planning. For those of you that live on the Gulf Coast like I do, or other areas where you're likely to have hurricanes, you might stock up on items like food, that are non-perishables, waters, flashlights, and things like that in case of a hurricane. And I'll give you an example of that. So I live in Houston, so we actually have supplies for 2 to 3 weeks should we be involved in a hurricane, because what a lot of people don't understand is that it's not the hurricane itself, it's the flooding that keeps you from getting outside of your neighborhood that can cause a problem. So we have those goods stored up. So last year when Houston had the unprecedented freeze, because we don't normally get that cold, and it shut off power for a lot of people, it shut off water for a lot of people. We still had our power, we did not have water, but we had family members that came to our house because they had none of those things. And it was actually our hurricane preparedness that saved us. So even though we had planned for a hurricane, the contingency plan we had for a hurricane even served us during this freeze. So I'm sharing that to say that the contingency plans that you create, if they're really good, they can actually be used in other scenarios as well. So while contingency plans are more of a reactive strategy, scenario planning is more of a proactive strategy where you're actually looking at things that you're not anticipating happening, but creating plans based on those. So we're not actually planning for things that are ridiculous. So when you're doing scenario planning, you're not planning for a dinosaur to burst through your office door, right? It's things that are still plausible, but unlikely. And so what you're actually doing is you're getting a group of some of the brightest minds within your organization, maybe borrowing some minds outside the organization. We want to make sure that we have different types of departments represented. And then as a result of that, we get them together and they start looking at what the possibilities are and how we might need to have backup plans for those other situations that maybe we wouldn't have anticipated with a contingency plan. When you think about scenario planning, this is something that we as futurists do, but you're actually looking at multiple possible futures and creating plans based on the possible future. So it's not just one particular event that can happen, but you start thinking about, what if there's a world war, right? How would that change your business? So you start thinking about the possibilities there. What if there's another pandemic? How would that change things? What if the economy collapsed? Or on the other end, what if the economy just grew tremendously on levels unlike anything we can expect? What are our scenarios for that? And so it's taking basically alternative futures and planning for those futures versus contingency planning, plans for particular elements. So quick question for you. Have you already subscribed to this channel? If you haven't, I suggest you take just a second and go ahead and subscribe right now. Okay, so now you understand the difference between scenario planning and contingency planning. We know that many of us have contingency plans in our households, schools have them. It's those predictable things that can happen at any point in time. We understand that scenario planning is planning for alternative futures, and you start doing things in the now that'll protect you against these possible futures. So when you stop and think to yourself, should you be doing contingency planning or scenario planning? It's not an either or situation. You want to do both. Typically, you want to start with your contingency plans because those are the ones that can help you in the case of the things that are likely to happen in the near future. But you do want to do scenario planning because that's what's going to help you ensure long-term resilience for your organization. It's much easier to get through an alternative future that's something that maybe you're not really particularly happy about if you already have a plan in place for that future. But if you plan for the best, which is what most of us do, we plan for the positive because we're told to be positive, and something negative happens like an economic downturn, if we don't already have a plan for it, now we're scrambling at the last minute to figure out how to innovate within our business to last through this change versus already having a plan in place. Speaking of having a plan in place, you've probably noticed in the description of this video, there's a link to download a Future Ready Playbook. It's chock full of all kinds of activities and worksheets that will help you be more strategic in planning for your future, whether we're talking about personally, professionally, or your organization. So take a moment to download it today.